George Kittle and a potential week one return. Can it happen? Well, we'll discuss in front of the spectacular sunset on this Sunday night. And George spoke to Front Office Sports not too long ago. That's George right there, taken by the 49ers social media team at OTAs. But he spoke to Front Office Sports, and we have the full quote here because it sounds like week one is still in play. I would still say that it's not likely for George Kittle, especially because the 49ers have to get on this 16-hour flight to Australia. And that may end up being the deal breaker in the direction of not playing, is you don't want somebody coming off of a torn Achilles to be on a 16-hour flight. It's going to be, well, they take a 777, so I don't think that the pressurization is as good as a Dreamliner. I'll be taking a Dreamliner because I'm flying commercial. And the 49ers are flying United as well, but the team plane is a 777. Shout out to Byron. Hopefully he's their pilot heading out to Australia. Anyway, those cabins are pressurized to about 9,000 feet, and it's not good for injury recovery. It's not good for swelling, all this and all that. And if there's any sort of question, I don't think the 49ers are going to be wanting Kittle to be flying 32 total hours to Australia and back. I mean, it's a long time in a plane. That being said, we have the exact quote from George Kittle, and Mike prepared a nice graphic with him in it, and we can take a look at it right now. On if he'll be ready for week one, this is speaking to Front Office Sports. That's what my goal is. I was told that it's not a crazy goal. That is probably from Dr. Neil Elatrosh, who performed the surgery on George Kittle's torn Achilles. As long as I keep on the right path and everything goes the right way, hey, I got a chance. As a 15-hour flight and a game like 4 days before normal opening day, that might make it a little bit difficult, sure. But who doesn't like a challenge? So no, I've got a chance. Like I said, so just going to keep my head down, keep grinding every single day. Here's where George Kittle gets very realistic. If we started the season off at home and I didn't have to hop on a plane for 15 hours, it might be different. But I think it just depends on how I'm feeling, if I'm cleared to go. If I'm cleared, hey, I'll be there and I'll be on the field. And if they're like, hey, it's close, it'll be a game time decision, so we'll see. Everyone keeps telling me I won't be back until week 6, 7, or 8. And it'll be like, you guys believe whatever you want to believe. My goal is to be back as soon as possible. You can already see there through the quote about the flight, and if we were playing at home, I'd be back for sure. I'm paraphrasing at this point, but you could already see there that a major sticking point is this flight, which is over 15 hours long, by the way. It could be at close to 16. It'll depend on the winds. It's going to be slower on the way out there, though, than on the way back, because you're generally going to be flying against the wind on the way down to Australia. Potato, though. 15 hours, 16 hours, 14, 17. That's long, right? And I think that since George Kittle tore his Achilles in January, and you talk about fastest possible return being 9 months, and I get it that his tear was a little bit higher on the Achilles so that there's more blood flow and everything has gone right in the recovery. Fine. If everything goes right, you say about the minimum amount of time, 9 months. Well, then what's going to happen is that this flight is going to come right on the bubble. 49ers are actually going to leave September 2nd to Australia. That's how intense this travel is. This game, let me just highlight how the travel is going to work for this game. But this game is going to be on September 11th in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia, at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, the largest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere. It will be played on the morning of September 11th local time. It probably is going to be the earliest 49ers kickoff ever, because that's going to line up with prime time Thursday night back in the United States, September 10th. Okay, so the 49ers want to get there a full week before. So to get there a full week before, you have to arrive in Melbourne. I'm going to fly to Sydney first, but the 49ers will fly straight to Melbourne. You've got to arrive in Australia on September 4th. Game is on Friday, September 11th. You're going to need to arrive in Australia on September 4th. All right, it's not as easy as just flying on September 4th and arriving on September 4th, though. To arrive in Australia on September 4th, the 49ers are going to have to take off from the Bay Area on September 2nd. Not September 3rd, on September 2nd. That's because you fly over the date line the wrong way to get there, so you lose an entire day. So what the 49ers are going to do, they're going to leave on Wednesday, September 2nd at some point in the evening. September 3rd is just going to happen while they're in the sky, 16 hours in the air to Melbourne. When they land, it will be morning of September 4th, Friday. Then theoretically, they're going to have Saturday and Sunday kind of off to chill in Australia, obviously do some treatment, recover from the flight. And then I'm guessing they're going to practice Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, September 7th, 8th, and 9th before the walkthrough on Thursday, the 10th, and then they're going to play the Rams on the 11th. If you want something extra trippy, well, on the way back, the 49ers will take off on Friday, September 11th in the afternoon, maybe at 4 p.m. They'll actually land earlier than they took off if you just go by the clock. They'll land in the Bay Area about 1 or 2 p.m. because they're going to fly over the date line this time in the way that I guess this will technically be backwards over the date line. They're going to go back a day. So the day that they theoretically lost flying to Australia, they'll gain back, but not until after the game. This is all interesting context. This has never been done before for a regular season game in NFL history. Flying to Japan, it's closer, and there have been exhibition games, I think, played in Japan before. I think the 49ers actually in the 90s went to Japan. But the NFL wants a regular season game in Japan as well at some point soon. That's going to have a similar dynamic, though, flying over the date line. It's going to mess you up time-wise for sure. But the sheer distance of the flight to Australia is, I think, what one of the biggest concerns is. And I really, really think that when we see George Kittle mention the flight 3 or 4 times in his quote, the front office sports, I think that that's a strong hint that this is going to be a very, very uphill battle. Because even if this goes perfectly, the flight is going to come on September 2nd, and that flight is going to be less than 9 months after the torn Achilles. So when every day matters in this recovery and this return for George Kittle, you could say that, if this were just a game in Denver, you could say, okay, fine, he flies on September 10th, flies a day before the game, maybe 2 days before the game. He's going to miss a whole week, though, here. He's got to fly a whole week sooner. And I don't know if the 49ers are ever going to be comfortable. I don't know if doctors are ever going to be comfortable putting him on a flight that lasts nearly 16 hours coming off that Achilles. That being said, the 49ers' big question, if the recovery continues along at a good speed, and Dr. Elatrosh stopped in Nashville a couple months ago at this point and told George Kittle he's going to play a lot of football this year. A big question will be, does George start the season on PUP, which would be a minimum of 4 games out, or is he going to be ready to go right away week 2 for the home opener? Then you don't put him on PUP, you just don't fly him all the way out to Australia. So the 49ers play weeks 2, 3, and 4 on natural grass at home. And I think that potentially a fair compromise, and they'd be a little shorthanded on the roster week 1 if Kittle is not on PUP and he doesn't travel. But maybe the 49ers do have him back week 2 if everything continues to go well. They just don't fly him out to Australia. All right, we're going to make this as interactive as possible. This is the final show of the month of May. It's been a hell of a month. We opened this month in the fresh aftermath of the NFL draft. Ooh, I almost knocked over my mic. That's not good. I've got this new mic stand here. It's not in the most opportune spot. I also have my fancy water. We've been to Europe and back. We've celebrated the 1-month birthday of our baby daughter, Savannah Lombardi. We've been to San Francisco and back a couple times, I believe, this month. Yeah, rookie minicamp and OTA 1. And, the third time I was out there for the Dwight Clark Legacy Series event with Brock Purdy and Kyle Juszczyk, the Dwight Clark Award winner. So, a ton has happened, and now OTA number 2, open OTA number 2 coming up on Wednesday. Going to talk to the 49ers assistant coaches on Tuesday. If you have any questions that you want asked of the 49ers assistant coaches who are going to be available in that auditorium, go ahead and shoot them my way, and I will consider them. But for now, I'm also going to consider your questions. So let's go ahead and put those into the comments section and make this as interactive as possible. Robert said he actually crossed the date line and is a year older because he had 2 birthdays. That's like leap year stuff. Although the leap year would be the opposite. You'd be younger, right? If you're born on the leap day of the leap year, your birthday would only hit once every 4 years. And then if you were 32 years old in normal years, you'd only be what, like 8, because you'd divide 32 divided by 4. I get it. People who are born on February 29th typically celebrate their birthday either on February 28th or on March 1st, but we can play all kinds of weird mental gymnastics with the date line, which I think are related to that one. What players have popped out at me on offense and defense? I'd say on offense, Kaelon Black, the running back, he moves. We're not seeing anybody breaking tackles or doing that kind of stuff, but we're seeing that he's got good route running skills. He's got good hands. I'm most excited, though, to see Kaelon Black actually be able to break tackles, because he averaged 3.4 yards after contact per attempt. Over 60% of his yards, and he had over 1,000 yards for Minnesota or for Indiana this past year. Over 60% of his yards were after contact. I mean, the guy was a bona fide bulldozer. So he can't display that before the pads come on, but he can display some of the receiving ability, which had been a question for some fans. And I thought that he's just a good athlete. He just flashed as far as being able to move. Light on his feet, but I think heavy to tackle. He squats over 500 pounds. So he's stood out on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, Jaden Duggar and Ephesians Priceock, the linebacker and the cornerback, they're both long players. And you could really tell. You know who else is long is Romelo Height. And I think that he's, Mike texted the other day. He's like, height, you could tell he's light, right? He's in the 230s, 239. But I don't think you want him any heavier if you're the 49ers. I think you like the fact that he's long, spry. I think he's got a big enough base. I've said this before, to hold his own when it comes to pass rushing. But I think that he's not a run stopper. He's somebody that is going to actually be asked to drop into coverage. And if you're asked to drop into coverage as an outside linebacker, you better be able to move. And you better have length to close off some of those passing lanes. So I've really noticed Romelo Height on the defensive side of the ball just because of the build. And I've noticed Kaelon Black on the offensive side of the ball, to answer your question there. Kaelon Black, Quadzilla. Hey, I called him Quadzilla the other day. You stole that from me. I'm just looking at the comment section right now. Ryan, I think everybody's right here, Ryan. Ryan says people say Stribling is replacing JJ. Ryan says, I see it more he's replacing Ayuk eventually. Not that he has the same profile, but he can be the future X. Yeah, so short term, Dejon Stribling replaces Jawan Jennings as the 3rd wide receiver. Big slot. He can block. They thought he was the best run blocking wide receiver in the draft class. Short term, that is an Ayuk replacement. Long term, short term, that is a Jennings replacement. The F, the big slot. Long term, absolutely. When you're talking about the X, you're talking about a big body who can play split end, who could win in contested catch situations, who can block, who's got either speed or size or both. X is the most valuable receiver position. It's the toughest one. It's the one that draws the most defensive attention. It's supposed to be a magnet out there for those safeties. And I think that they saw Dejon Stribling as somebody with a skill set to potentially play the X full time. I don't think that Ricky Pearsall was viewed that way. I think they saw Pearsall as an outside guy, but as a Z. I think Pearsall, pure flanker for the 49ers, right? They love him at that flanker, at that Z position. But I think with Dejon Stribling, the size is there to think of him as a potential X. Now, not right away, though. That's a long-term thing. And now they've got Mike Evans at that position. So Evans is the direct replacement for Ayuk. Past Evans, who's 33 this year, you can think maybe Dejon Stribling. As Eric Gomes says, Stribling can learn a lot and will learn a lot from Mike Evans. When will Michael be back? Probably a little bit later than Nick Bosa. And Bosa wants to be back for the start of training camp. I'm not so sure about Michael because he tore his ACL 6 weeks later. How's Curtis Rourke looking? I thought that he looked fine in practice the other day. He even ran a little bit at practice the other day. Now, there's not guys chasing him trying to tackle him, but he's coming off the torn ACL. He played on the torn ACL at Indiana, one of 4 Indiana players on this 49ers roster. They've got 4 Indiana Kurt Signetti guys, and they've got 4 Jed Fish guys, either from Arizona or from the University of Washington. And, we talked to Jed Fish about Carver Willis and Sebastian Valdez and Ephesians Prysock and Jacob Cowing. And I thought Jacob Cowing looked really spry. I thought he caught a lot of passes the other day. Physicality is going to be something that he has to respond well to, though. As of right now, they're playing football in shorts, and I think it sets up well for guys like Cowing, if he is healthy, to look good, because you don't have to worry about blocking, you don't have to worry about press coverage, you don't have to worry about contact. But I give Cowing the credit he deserves. He was a playmaker for the 49ers at that first open OTA practice. I mean, if Cowing continues to produce the way that he did at that practice, that continues into padded practices at training camp, then he's going to make the team. Cowing is a favorite for the 49ers to be their punt returner. Jordan Watkins returned punts in college. Cowing did. Will Pauling, who's an undrafted free agent receiver, can potentially do it. They had Ricky Pearsall back there as well. Wesley Grimes, who's undrafted free agent out of North Carolina State, was working on some punt returns for the 49ers, but I think Cowing might be the leader of that bunch. I don't think the 49ers are changing full-time to 3-4. I think they're diversifying what they're doing defensively so that they'll have some 3-4 principles with 5-man fronts, maybe 20 to 30% of the time, some drops from the defensive end / outside linebacker in those scenarios. Romelo Height, we look at him. But I think that they're still going to be in their 4-3 wide 9 the majority of the time. I think that it's important to diversify defense because offenses are continually adapting, and you've got to make sure that you're going pace for pace in the chess match. Do I realistically see any of the undrafted free agents having a legit shot at the 53-man roster? Well, yes, because I don't know who's going to get hurt. We can open up the roster now if you want to illustrate this. But, take a look at this. Right side right here, I'll highlight it. That is the side that I don't project to make the 53. This side right here, this is who I do project to make the 53. Right now, I've got 54 projected to make the 53. Now, one of these guys that's hurt could start the season on PUP, right? So that could help free up a roster spot for the 49ers. Currently, Isaac Guerendo is the most recent injury that we've learned about. But, the undrafted free agents, I've got these guys on the right. I don't have anybody making the team as of right now. I just mentioned Pauling and Grimes. Pauling is interesting to me because 42-inch vertical leap. I mean, the guy can jump out of the gym. He's a smaller 5'9" slot guy out of Notre Dame, but he was their most trusted receiver. If you can be the most trusted receiver at a big-time college football factory, I'm going to pay attention to what you might be able to do at the NFL level. Because especially nowadays with NIL and guys changing teams and, talent coming in on a yearly basis, like veteran college talent coming in on a yearly basis, to be the most trusted target at a place where talent does flow freely like Notre Dame, you're doing something right. And I think you might be able to translate that to the NFL level. Grimes is a bigger target. And, for either of these two guys, Pauling or Grimes, to be able to make the 53, I think a lot would have to happen in front of them injury-wise, but I'm not going to discount both of them as players. Khalil Dinkins, the tight end out of Penn State, might have the best chance out of any one of these undrafted free agents to make it. He did get a big, sizable undrafted free agent guaranteed, $285,000. But, if we're talking about Kittle right now, if he's not available early or if he's half and half, if he's available not on PUP, but is not going to make the flight to Australia because of obvious reasons, that could be a situation where the 49ers are compelled to take a fourth tight end. Right now, your top three are Kittle, Tonjes, and Luke Farrell. Would the fourth just be the guy that you trust in Braden Willis, since he's been around for a few years? Or do you go with the rookie undrafted free agent Khalil Dinkins? One thing about Khalil Dinkins is that he was buried at Penn State on a depth chart behind Tyler Warren. And Tyler Warren's a hell of a player. He was a first-round pick. Dinkins may not have had a fair shot to really show off his skill set in college because of Tyler Warren's presence on that Penn State roster. So keep that in mind. He's going to have a fair shot with the 49ers, and there might be some room to carry him. We'll see how the roster shakes out. Other undrafted free agents, Mikhail Kamara, he's got a shot for sure. I mean, the guy was productive in college, and 2 years ago, Mikhail Kamara played in a system that's a lot like what the 49ers play now, in an attack system. Indiana played a little bit more read and react last year, which is why the sack numbers went down. But if he takes to the 49ers system, we're sitting here, everybody's always asking about Joey Bosa and Kyle Van Noy and defensive ends. Like, can the 49ers use one more? Well, what if the one more defensive end is already in the building? What if it's Mikhail Kamara, who had 10 sacks for Indiana a couple years ago? Don't discount the possibility. I think it's going to be tougher sledding for either of the two defensive tackles, the undrafted free agents, for Bryson Easton or James Thompson Jr., just because the 49ers have loaded up at the DT position. They're so much deeper there now than they were last year. But you've got Adigizua, you've got Alfred Collins, who should be back from the shoulder surgery. You've got the draft pick, Grayson Halton, obviously CJ West. And then before you even get to the undrafted free agents, you have guys who have impressed the 49ers already in their building. Evan Anderson, he impressed them in 2024, didn't make it up to game day in 2025, but he has got some game experience and some plays under his belt. And Sebastian Valdez, who impressed the 49ers enough in 2025 that they gave him 3 raises just by practice squad elevations. They didn't use him in games, but they gave him the elevation to give him a 53-man raise. So that was obviously to make sure Sebastian Valdez is happy and recognized for his work. And I think that he, if he takes another step, he could make that roster. They brought in Larry Worth, the Arkansas safety, to play linebacker. That's going to be tough with how crowded linebacker is. And then Jalen Stroman, there might be an extra room at a safety position with Mustafa Brown and Siegel, the 53-man projections. But Stroman, who's more of a box safety, is going to compete with Derek Canteen and Patrick McMorris. And they recently cut a safety, or they put him on IR, in Derek Forrest. So that has thinned out just a little bit. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that depth chart look. Hello to Connecticut. Hello from Connecticut. Hello to Connecticut. Steven says, you don't play Kittle down in Australia. No, probably not. I would lean toward that, and I think Kittle was implying something very, very similar in the quote from Front Office Sports that we took a look at. I'll be at Tight End University as we turn the page here from May to June. I'll be at Tight End University in Nashville, and maybe we'll get to talk to George there about how his return from the Achilles injury is going. Is Jacob Robinson fully healthy? Yep, Jacob is fully healthy. He had a broken forearm last year, but he is back, and that's the second-year cornerback out of BYU. Could Myles Garrett be a possible trade this season? You know, it would have been a lot more possible had the Browns seen their proposal ratified to be able to trade first-round picks up to 5 years in advance instead of just 3, because Garrett's the type of player that would command potentially more than 3 first-round picks. So I don't think that it's likely. I think it's probably remotely possible. The thing is, like, there's always drama there on a year-in, year-out basis. Like, even before he signed the contract, now even after he signed the contract, the new coach, Monken, right? Todd Monken hasn't seen Myles Garrett, hadn't spoken to him. I played that quote the other day when we did the show from Prague. So Cleveland just doesn't seem to be a functional place. If they were a smart franchise, I think they would press a full reset, GM, coach, quarterback. I mean, they paid Deshaun Watson that insane guaranteed deal. Now he's going to be competing with Shedeur Sanders. But if you wanted to truly hit the reset button, you've got Myles Garrett at the height of his powers, but at 30 years old, you'd have the ability to get a king's ransom in return for him and just let a properly hired coach and GM build a roster with whatever you would get in return. I think it'd be a great chance for Cleveland to hit the reset button. But I don't really think that Cleveland thinks in such forward thinking ways. And because of that, you're probably looking at Myles Garrett staying in Cleveland. That being said, it's a very trade that they built the contract to be tradable when they signed him last offseason. So for take it for what it's worth, that's where the Cleveland Browns are right now. Well, I think it's possible for the 49ers to franchise tag Mac Jones and then trade him before he signs the tag. Probably not, because I think that the tag is going to be for quarterbacks, probably $40 million, right? The issue is that you don't go from backup quarterback money, no matter how well you play as a backup, to full starting quarterback money. You usually have to take a progression, and we saw it with Sam Darnold, good backup for the 49ers, progressed to a bridge starter for Minnesota, 10 million or so a year. And then he signed he signed like a B-list quarterback deal with Minnesota, with Seattle at 30 million a year. So he went backup money, what, 4 million a year for the 49ers, bridge quarterback money, 10 million a year from the Vikings, QB1, but B-list QB1 money, 30 million a year from Seattle. I almost hope for Sam's sake that he holds out this offseason and tries to get some A-list quarterback money, because he just won a Super Bowl with the Seahawks. So, they need him. They obviously need him in Seattle, and he played really, really well down the stretch. So if that doesn't earn you a chance to take a bite out of the A-list apple, I don't know what does. But anyway, you're not going to be able to skip steps here. And Mac Jones is not going to be able to skip a step from making 3.5 million a year to 40 million a year, because that's what the franchise tag would cost. So if you slap that tag on him, then it's going to be really hard to trade him, because that tag is going to be it's the average, I think, at the top 10 or 5 position. It's probably more than 40 million, to be honest, the quarterback position. I don't even know what it is, but it's nowhere close to what Mac Jones is going to be worth on his next deal, and that's going to be around 10 to 15 million a year. So no, you wouldn't do this with Mac Jones. Well, right now, Savannah Alice Lombardi, and I'll give you guys an update on our daughter. They told us that she was in the 100th percentile of height. I'm 6'5", and her mom is 5'11". I think she's over 23 inches now, and she is about a month and a half old. But this was at like a checkup about 2 weeks ago or so. They said 100th percentile height, and I said, guys, that means that she is literally the tallest baby in the history of babies at this age. And they said, well, she's in the 99th percentile then. So she's probably not the very tallest, because I'm sure that there have been anomalies, but she's definitely taller than almost anybody that we've seen at this age. So the growth, I mean, it's happening fast, but it also, I mean, she just started tall to begin with. But the relative athletics, well, I wasn't kidding about that early one. She was off the charts and continues to be so in terms of height. Your daughter was 99th percentile and all the, how tall is your daughter now? 99th percentile. I mean, it's funny because we were at the time that we were going through all this, it was the draft, and we were looking at all the percentile scores in the relative athletic score department. So it's just The parallels ended up being good. The timing ended up being very, very fortuitous. Your daughter's 5'5" and she's only 11. Wow, yeah, she is tall. I know a lot of people who are fully grown who are not 5'5". When should I shave the beard off? I mean, I've done a beard twice now since I've started the YouTube channel. I did a beard back, and this was before the YouTube, in 2018 or 2019, one of the two. I think it was 2019. Then I did another one in 2022. I had to shave the one off in 2022, moving over into 2023 because I got married and they wanted me clean shaven for the wedding. So I said, okay. Then they wanted the beard back. So I let it grow out this off season. It's like an off season dad beard, if you will. And now I'm just in a holding pattern, you know. We've got a couple months before training camp, and we'll see if it's still around at training camp. But for the time being, I'm fairly happy with it. I'm past the itchy stage. So, I mean, the worst thing you could do if you're not sure is to shave it off and then regret it and then have to go through the itchy stage again, because that's a little annoying. I mean, we started this right around the time of the owners' meetings 2 months ago. So this is where we're at right now. We've had it trimmed a couple times and all that, but it's feeling pretty good. Everybody says keep the beard. Well, the wife likes it. She's the one that demanded it. So it could be a championship beard. Don't shave it until the 49ers win a Super Bowl. When they win, we're swimming. We're doing a live stream, swimming, taking the boat out to Alcatraz and swimming back in. So maybe I need the beard for warmth in February in that water. Knicks or Spurs? Well, okay, this is cool. Let me show you guys a little something. Those of you who follow me on social media probably have already seen this, but this right here is the coach of the San Antonio Spurs. That's Mitch Johnson. I went to college with him. So either NBA coaches are getting really young or I'm getting old. But Mitch Johnson was a point guard for Stanford. He was actually teammates with the Lopez twins, Brooke and Robin Lopez, who played for Stanford at the time, out of San Joaquin Memorial in Fresno, the two 7'1" twins. Teammates with the Lopez twins, now has risen up through the coaching ranks of the San Antonio Spurs and has coached them all the way up to the NBA Finals against the Knicks. So since I actually know somebody involved in these NBA Finals, I'm going to say that the Spurs are going to win this one. That is Mitch Johnson, the Stanford product, head coach of San Antonio. And yes, I'm probably getting old, and I think it's a combination of both. NBA coaches are getting a little bit younger, just like NFL coaches, and I am getting older. Some grays in the beard. You can't see them right now that much, but there are some grays. I kind of like the grays, though. Grays give you texture, right? It gives you a little bit of seasoning, if you will. Now, it's funny because I'm 38. I think that Mitch Johnson is maybe a year older than me. I think he might be 39. Maybe he's 38, but he's around my age. Kyle Shanahan was about 38 years old when the 49ers hired him 10 years ago. So Mitch Johnson, now the coach of the Spurs, is about the age of Kyle Shanahan when he first became the coach of the 49ers, just for some perspective. Aging is a blessing. Yeah, hasn't been bad so far. Some wisdom has come with it, just a little bit. All right, we got some Australia recommendations. You have to do the Sydney Harbour Bridge climb at sunset, a must in Sydney. Should I do a show while I do it? Is that going to be possible? Can I do a live stream, or do I need to pre-record and edit it? I think I'm gonna definitely either fly into or out of Sydney, maybe both times. I'll do the Sydney thing, but can't wait to see Sydney. It's only about an hour to Melbourne, so I am very, very much looking forward to that. Is this true? The last time the Knicks won the NBA Finals, Phil Jackson was their backup power forward? That's actually crazy. The Dolphins are the 49ers' opponent in week 2. Mike said maybe George Kittle returns then. I'm just reading a text from Mike. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe our next piece of intel from George comes during Tight End University here in Nashville. Yeah, I heard. I'm not going to try to swim in Australia. I heard there's actually shark attacks there. I heard that could get gnarly in Australia. That's why they've got the pools that are on the beach but not part of the ocean, right? They call it Bondi Beach in Australia. Here, let's find a picture. It's actually really, really beautiful. And I hope, it's going to be fall, right? When we get there, or spring. It's going to be a shoulder season when we go to Australia. So it may not look like what I'm about to show you. But we can always hope that it does. I just have to get the window in place here so I can show you guys what I'm talking about in Australia. All right, here we go. The Bondi Beach pool. And I'm sure that it has a name that I'm missing right now. I will learn all the terminology, I promise, when I do make the actual trip down. But this is what we're talking about. I don't think you want to get into that actual open ocean, because I think that the sea life there is really, really aggressive. But there's a reason that they put the beaches or the pools right on the beach. So you got a separate body of water. So I'm going to get into the pool, but I don't think I'm going to be getting into that ocean. And this is in Sydney. But I'm really, really hoping that the weather is decent, because it's not going to be summer when we're there. It's going to be spring, right? It's going to be moving into spring, because we're going to be moving into fall slowly but surely. So it'll be moving from winter into spring in Australia when we get there on September 4th. The stadium's going to be cool. The Melbourne Cricket Ground, I mean, it seats 100,000, and it's the largest stadium in the Southern Hemisphere. Garrett says I can live stream from the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Walking upside down in Australia is going to be crazy. Yeah, because we're in the Southern Hemisphere, so I'm going to be walking upside down. It's going to be, yeah. I don't know how you guys do it out there. I guess I'm going to have to recalibrate my vision or my brain for it to work. 49ers going to have to make some adjustments too. I mean, you're playing a whole game upside down against the Rams. Can't be easy. In the 1950s, the Prime Minister disappeared on the beach in Australia. It only made the second page of the newspaper due to so many things naturally killing everyone. So I guess I'm supposed to watch my back in Australia, or my leg if I'm swimming, so that doesn't get bitten off. But I'll be careful. I'll be a little more careful than I am in the Bay Area. Home game meetup. Where do you want me to do the home game meetup at? Where in the Bay? Where in the Bay is best? Somewhere in the city? Is Corliss Waitman looking like an upgrade from Mitch Wishnowsky? Well, they've had a punter in between Wishnowsky and Waitman, and it was Thomas Morstead. Waitman is numbers better than Thomas Morstead, so that looks like an upgrade. Wishnowsky was hurt toward the end for the 49ers, which is why they went to Morstead. So theoretically, Waitman is an upgrade, but there might be a competition. Now, speaking of Australia, Jack Bowmeister, the Australian, the rookie, he's technically not on the roster because I guess there's visa issues right now, but they want a competition at punter. And maybe the NFL really wants Bowmeister on this football team, at least on the practice squad, so the 49ers or the Rams have an Australian player for the game in Australia. Bowmeister's a righty, right-footed. Corliss Waitman is a lefty. Take that for what it's worth. Everybody, thanks for watching. It was a hell of a month. I just wanted to do a show to thank everybody for the great month of May. We set some records on the channel. Seems like every month is a record-breaking month.
Sign up for a membership on the desktop version of your computer if you can do that. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, comment whatever you want to see on Australia. Let me know if you want me to keep the beard. It's another good thing to put into the comments section. All interaction is good interaction. It supports the channel. Thank you for a great month. It started with the end of the NFL draft. We saw rookie minicamp. We got to look at all of the 49ers' new players. It continued with the Dwight Clark Legacy Series event. That was a fun time in San Jose. And it moved forward. We did 49ers shows from Europe. Crazy. And then we made it all the way back, and we did OTAs, and OTAs will continue. So hit that subscribe button. Everybody, thank you for watching. We will talk to you very soon. We'll talk to you in June.